vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Bihari. Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari. Yashoda Nandana Bhaja Janaranjana. Yashoda Nandana Bhaja Janaranjana. Vanachira Vanachari. Namunatira Vanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Bihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Ashtota Siddha Sri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Ashtota Siddha Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 7, text 3. Wait for you to pull it up. Can you do it? All right. You don't have your phone? Anybody? No? I'll pull it up. I'll do it. I mean, get it, yeah, because I might want to reference something. I'll just pull it up on here for now. Okay. Manushyanam sahasreshu kashchid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kashchin mang veti tatvataha manushyanam sahasreshu kashchid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kashchin mam veti tatvataha manushyanam sahasreshu kashchid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kashchin mam veti tatvataha manushyanam sahasreshu kashchid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kashchin mam veti tatvataha manushyanam sahasreshu kashchid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kashchin mam veti tatvataha. Please repeat.
Manushyanam sahasreshu kashchid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kashchin mam veti tatvataha
Manushyanam sahasreshu kashchid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kashchin mam veti tatvataha. Matajis? Manushyanam sahasreshu kashchid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kashchin mam veti tatvataha. Okay. Manushyanam, of men, sahasreshu, out of many thousands, kashchit, someone, yatati, endeavors, siddhaye, for perfection, yatatam, of those so endeavoring, api, indeed, siddhanam, of those who have achieved perfection, kashchit, someone, mam, me, veti, does know, tatvataha, in fact. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. There are various grades of men, and out of many thousands, one may be sufficiently interested in transcendental realization to try to know what is the self, what is the body, and what is the absolute truth. Generally, mankind is simply engaged in the animal propensities, namely eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, and hardly anyone is interested in transcendental knowledge. The first 6 chapters of the Gita are meant for those who are interested in transcendental knowledge and understanding the self, the super-self, and the process of realization by jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, and discrimination of the self from matter. However, Krishna can be known only by persons who are in Krishna consciousness. Other transcendentalists may achieve impersonal Brahman realization, for this is easier than understanding Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Person, but at the same time he is beyond the knowledge of Brahman and Paramatma. The yogis and jnanis are confused in their attempts to understand Krishna. Although the greatest of the impersonalists, Sripad Shankaracharya, has admitted in his Gita commentary that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his followers do not accept Krishna as such, for it is very difficult to know Krishna, even though one has transcendental realization of impersonal Brahman. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, the primeval Lord Govinda, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Sachidananda Vigraha, Anadir Adir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. It is very difficult for the non-devotees to know him. Although non-devotees declare that the path of bhakti or devotional service is very easy, they cannot practice it. If the path of bhakti is so easy, as the non-devotee class of men proclaim, then why do they take up the difficult path? Actually, the path of bhakti is not easy. The so-called path of bhakti practiced by unauthorized persons without knowledge of bhakti may be easy. But when it is practiced factually according to the rules and regulations, the speculative scholars and philosophers fall away from the path. Srila Rupa Goswami writes in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Shruti Smriti Puranari Pancharacha Vidhim Vina Aikantiki Hare Bhaktir Utpatayaiva Kalpate. Devotional service of the Lord that ignores the authorized Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, and Narada Pancharatra is simply an unnecessary disturbance in society. It is not possible for the Brahman-realized impersonalist or the Paramatma-realized yogi to understand Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the son of Mother Yashoda or the charioteer of Arjuna. Even the great demigods are sometimes confused about Krishna. Muhyanti yat surayaha. Mam tu veda nakashtana. No one knows me as I am, the Lord says. And if one does know him, then samahatma sudurabhaha. Such a great soul is very rare. Therefore, unless one practices devotional service to the Lord, one cannot know Krishna as he is, tatvataha, even though one is a great scholar or philosopher. Only the pure devotees can know something of the inconceivable transcendental qualities in Krishna, in the cause of all causes, in his omnipotence and opulence, and in his wealth, fame, strength, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. Because Krishna is benevolently inclined to his devotees, He is the last word in Brahman realization, and the devotees alone can realize him as he is. Therefore it is said, Ata Shri Krishna Namadi Na Paved Grahyamin Dayahi Sevan Mukhe Hijivaro Swayam Evas Sfuratyadhaha. No one can understand Krishna as he is by the blunt material senses, but he reveals himself to the devotees, being pleased with them for their transcendental loving service unto him. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-2-234. Om Agyana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utaf Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavams Cha Shri Rupam Sagarjatam Saha Gana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saha Gana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrinavaneshri Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripasandubi Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishdaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhaktivikasa Swami Niti Namine Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishdaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vagisha Yasya Vadane Lakshmi Yasya Javaksasi Yasyaste Hridaye Samvittam Nishamham Mahamaje Yasya Devi Para Bhaktir Yata Tevi Tathagaro Tasyaite Katitahyata Prakashante Mahatmanaha. Got it? No, it's 3. Text 3. Now back. Yeah. Manushyanam sahasreshu kashtid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kashtin mam veti tatvataha. Of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So, this is a quite famous verse that's talked about often. The rarity of being someone who endeavors for this perfection of Krishna consciousness and perfecting our human form of life, ultimately with the goal of achieving pure devotional service to Krishna, unmotivated, pure devotional service, anyabhilashita shunyam. So, this is a very rare thing that is not seen often among men. And it's spoken about in the purport here that generally mankind is engaged in these animal propensities, eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. And hardly anyone is interested in transcendental knowledge. And you can see this practically just by the fact alone that there's probably about 20 or so people here in this room, and how many millions of people that live in the metro Atlanta area that are, we're freely giving out this knowledge that, we're not charging anything to come here. It's a very nice atmosphere, nice music, we speak philosophy, and then we serve at a really nice prasadam feast, and, all are welcome. And yet, despite all that, there's only a couple dozen people that end up coming. And so, props to you for making it here, and we're glad you're here. The thing is that, so many people out there, they're just engaged in these animalistic propensities. And Prabhupada says, and it's explained in the Shastra, that when someone isn't endeavoring for this transcendental knowledge, when they're not inquiring into the absolute truth, they are basically non-different from animals. They might as well be in the body of an animal. And they're absolutely, completely wasting their human form of life. Because it says in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Labdva sudurlabhamidam bahu sambhavante manusham artadam anityam api hariraha turnam yatetana pateran mrityu yavan nishrayasaya vishaya kalu sarvata syat. That after many births and deaths, one has achieved this rare human form of life. And having thus achieved this form of life, one should quickly endeavor for the highest perfection. Knowing that this sense gratification that everybody's generally chasing after, this is available even to the hogs and dogs, even to the lowest of animal species. They're getting the same level of sense gratification that the human beings are getting. Even the billionaire living in the penthouse and, having whatever the most beautiful wife and a wonderful family and all these things, eating the most opulent meals, is getting no more sense gratification than the hog that's eating its own stool. See, these hogs, they eat it up. They love it. And, dogs eat their own stool as well. So the enjoyment that comes from the billionaire eating whatever, a steak or something like that, prepared by a private chef and all these things, they're working so hard, doing all these things, running around here and there to try to make enough money and never satisfied. And they do all that so that they can satisfy their senses and gratify their senses for a temporary, hit of dopamine. And the animals are out there getting all that they need, and they're just as happy eating whatever that's on the street, just someone's leftovers just sitting on the street. So this is not the point of human life. The point of human life is to inquire into the absolute truth and to understand, who are we? Are we these bodies? Are we these minds? Are we something different than that? ask these questions, to inquire and to understand who is God. How can we understand who Krishna is? How can we be amongst others that are studying this? And how can we solve the problem of life, which is this problem of death, this problem that every living entity in this material world is facing over and over again? We're in this cycle of birth and death. How do we solve this problem? None of the things that the richest men are doing, or the most celebrated scientists, or even the greatest doctors and all these things, they're not actually trying to solve death. If you look at it, they're trying to cure cancer or cure this disease or that disease. The doctors and the billionaires are trying to go to Mars so that they can have a multi-planetary species. And so if the Earth gets wiped out, then the humanity goes on. And so they think that that's some form of immortality, that as long as humans go on, then I'm happy. But ultimately, at the time of death, all of this gets taken away, and Krishna comes as death. One of his forms is time. He says in the Bhagavad Gita, time I am. And so ultimately, at the end of life, even the most atheistic class of men is going to have to face Krishna in the form of time and accept their fate, that all of their endeavors have been thwarted by this hand of death coming and taking away everything from them. No matter how much they might say that their legacy is what matters to them, or this and that, ultimately, even the greatest legacy that you can see in history, my Guru Maharaj makes the example a lot of the Beatles, the very famous band. They were, at one point, they declared themselves more famous than Jesus, back in the 70s, I guess it was. And where are they now? You go out on the street and you tell people that, we're distributing books, and we say, George Harrison really liked these books, and most people say, who is George Harrison? They don't know who he is. He used to be one of the most famous people on the planet. And just, a mere 50 years later, almost nobody knows who he is, especially the younger generation. So even the most famous people with the most prestige and all these things, these things get taken away in time, even if it's after the time of death in some people's case. At some point, their legacy and their prestige will all be taken away by the hands of time, which is, again, this is Krishna. So what's being spoken of here is a very important principle, that out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection. And of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. And I was just kind of ruminating on this when I was reading it, that I had never read it in this way, but out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection. So it's not even saying that out of many thousands, one will achieve this perfection. It's actually, so you have thousands and thousands of people. One may even start to try this process of self-realization and trying to understand who they are. 99.99% of people are just stuck in this animal propensity, just eating, sleeping, mating, defending. And so this one person might start endeavoring, but that doesn't mean necessarily that they get very far in this path. They might only get 1% of the way to actually achieving this perfection that's spoken about. And we'll get into what that perfection is here in a minute. But so out of all those people, that endeavor for perfection, then there's probably thousands of those people that are endeavoring, and out of those, only one of those achieves perfection. And then out of those that are one out of thousands, and then one out of thousands of those thousands, hardly one knows me in truth. And this is Krishna speaking. Hardly one knows me. So this is being revealed here, that actually knowing Krishna is not such an easy thing. It's not a very simple thing. It's not a cheap thing. It's not something that we can practice for 5 minutes a day, and like a lot of if you go online or you just go to like a meditation class, here and there, whatever, you go to some of these conferences that we go to, people are advertising that you can get some level of enlightenment very cheaply. Just try this 5 minutes a day meditation, try this, sit there and think about this. Or I was at this booth in Raleigh, North Carolina a couple of weeks ago, And across from us, there was these people advertising, I don't even know what it was, some form of healing or something they were doing. But all that you would do is you'd go and you'd sit down in a chair, and then this person would stand in front of you, and they would just do this. They just have their hand, and they just... And they had a diagram. I looked at their table. They had a diagram, like a drawing. So the person sitting down was there, and then the person standing up was there. And then behind them, there was just this this blob, and it just said God. And then it had like arrows pointing to the guy that was standing there, like to his back. And so it was like God was coming into his back and like going through his hand and like just like going into the guy's forehead or something. I don't know. It was really, really weird. But people would just line up and just sit there, and like for 5 minutes, they would just like have some guy just standing there like that. They don't say anything. They don't talk. They just do that. And then every now and then their arm would get tired, so they would switch arms. It's like so it was like really like bewildering. I was like, wow, this is so crazy, you know. And I mean, we were selling, books as well. People were interested in that, but didn't seem to be as interested as they were in having some guy have their hand out on their forehead and whatever, sending God's energy to their forehead. So it was really a strange experience. But anyways, there's so many things like this, just complete speculations that some guy comes up with, and it's a scheme to make some money ultimately, and they travel around in the guise of doing something good for humanity, good for the world, good for people, good for your health, whatever it is. There's so many things. We were speaking to a guy that's found us online. Me and Abhimanyu Prabhu were speaking to him. He reached out and he was interested in wanting to come, try out the program, being a monk. And so we connected with him. We were on the phone with him and we were talking to him. And he had so many ideas about self-realization or understanding who we are, or like achieving enlightenment or whatever this is. And he's taking from like, okay, Norse mythology and like the Emerald Tablets and Atlantis is in there somewhere. And then like, he just had a mishmash of all these ideas, and I like these gods from like whatever, he's like Hindu gods, I like those, and I like these Norse gods too, and I like this and that, and I just like take what I like from each one, and I worship that god and this god and this god, but it's all just a mishmash, and he's just going based off of what he hears on YouTube or whatever. He just like goes on a rabbit hole and just finds this and finds that, and ultimately his any idea of having the truth and having a proper path is completely destroyed by just this complete conglomeration of nonsense that's out there. And it's really dangerous with the internet now. If you just try to go based on your own like intuition or whatever feels right for you, you're going to be misled in so many ways. And it's talking about this, that those who are endeavoring perfection, that again, it's like he's somewhat endeavoring for perfection. He's realized the futility of material life in some way, to some capacity, but he doesn't have the understanding of how to approach that. But luckily for him, we just spoke to him and just told him straight up, look, everything you're saying is nonsense, actually. You're taking from all these different sources. It doesn't make any sense. And he was following some guru that was telling him, chant this mantra or that mantra, it doesn't matter, chant any mantra and it'll be okay. And we told him, this is all nonsense, man. You need to understand that you need to take the proper source. We're not telling you something we've made up. We're not telling you some concoction. We're telling you straight from the source. This Bhagavad Gita as it is, and the Srimad Bhagavatam are the original texts. These are the texts, that are, Bhagavad Gita itself is spoken by Krishna himself, the Supreme Personality of God. It is perfect knowledge. There's nothing flawed in it at all. And it's a complete user manual to perfecting the human life, and it's complete in itself. You can read the Bhagavad Gita alone and achieve self-realization, attain perfection, if you simply follow what it says. Of course, it's required to be under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master. Just reading just the translation, just the text and translations of the Bhagavad Gita, again, you'll just be led into so many misconceptions. This is something I used to do before, when I first found the Bhagavad Gita, I was just like reading through the translations and, purport, I don't really know what that is. So, it just sounds like it's some person's opinion. But it wasn't until I started reading the purports and associating with devotees more often that so many of my misconceptions began being dispelled, which is, the ultimate, the purpose of reading the Bhagavad Gita is to get the proper knowledge. And so you have to do it under the guidance of these spiritual master and the sadhus that are following properly. So the point I was making with this young man that we met online, we told him this is all bogus, this and that, and you need to stop doing this. You should just go to the source. And he very quickly accepted it. He's actually very sincere, at least to a degree, from what we can tell. It's hard to tell with people just off a few conversations, but from what we can tell, he seems very sincere. And he actually wants to know the truth. But the thing is, when you come in contact with what is actually the truth, and even if it's unpalatable, saying that, okay, everybody's living like animals, that doesn't sound so nice to hear. You have to refrain from these 4, pillars of sinful life: no meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication. That doesn't sound so palatable here. These are things that many people are attached to in some way or the other, even if it's something as seemingly innocent as drinking coffee or something like that. To have the idea of giving these things up seems not so fun. Being told you have to wake up early, you have to wake up before 4 a.m. every day if you want to make progress in spiritual life. Prabhupada said there's no question of spiritual life without waking up before 4 a.m. So being told all these things, don't eat karmi grains, don't buy bread from the store, and then have the excuse that, well, it's made by a machine, so it's not karmi grains, it's machine grains. This is what someone told me today. It's complete nonsense. Lord Chaitanya says very clearly in, the Vishayira Anakali Malinahoy Man, Malinaman Hale Nahe Krishna Smaran, that these grains that are prepared, any food that's prepared by materialist, Vishayira, they make your mind like stool, and through that process you are unable to remember Krishna. And this is the ultimate demise of the living entity, especially someone that's on the path of Krishna consciousness, trying to understand Krishna, to have the, what's the opposite of the benediction? The curse, I guess you could say, the curse of forgetting Krishna. This is the ultimate demise of the bhakta, the person on the path of devotional service. So there's so many rules. We have to follow these things very strictly. It's not cheap. So many people take it very cheaply, and Prabhupada's speaking about that in the purport as well. He says here that he's quoting the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Shruti Smriti Puranari, Pancharatra Vidim Vina, Aikantiki Hare Bhaktir Utpatayaiva Kalpate. Devotional service of the Lord that ignores the authorized Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, and Narada Pancharatra is simply an unnecessary disturbance in society. So, there's this show bottle devotion that goes on in the name of Krishna consciousness nowadays. And it's really unfortunate. We talk about it so much here, and it's almost every class that seems to come up. These kirtan melas that happen all over the place, and recently we got a bit of an insight into what it's actually like there from someone who's actually been there and experienced it firsthand. That from the outside perspective, you may come in if you're unexperienced in Krishna consciousness, and you're not so, you haven't associated with devotees so much, and you haven't read Prabhupada's books, you haven't associated with bona fide devotees that are following, strictly. From an outside perspective, it might seem very nice, actually. You go in, and, I've experienced it myself. You go into a kirtan, and they're very good singers, very nice, seeming very devotional, and playing mridanga so nicely, and just amazing, musicianship all around. So many devotees are there. Maybe there's 100 devotees. They're all chanting nicely and dancing and clapping, and it's very nice environment, right? But what has to be seen is what happens after that kirtan stops. And there's this anecdote again that my Guru Maharaj gives of in Bengal. There's professional kirtaniers that go around, and I'm sure this still happens, but I think he was referring to back, maybe in the 70s and things like that, when he was traveling around Bengal preaching, that they would be having these similar thing. It's like a kirtan concert, I guess, where they're paid to do it. And on stage they would be seeming so devotional, so amazing, and just like they're just exhibiting ecstatic symptoms, rolling on the floor, crying, and all these things. And then as soon as the kirtan ended, or as soon as their time slot was up, and the next performer was late to the show, they would be really agitated all of a sudden and be looking for the next person and say, where are they? All their ecstatic symptoms would disappear and become dormant again. And then as soon as they left the stage, they would go and smoke a cigarette, a bidi, what is it called? It's a cigarette. So, instantly their devotion, or their devotion is seen for what it is. It's a big show. It's a show of devotion. And the same thing is going on nowadays. It looks a little different, but it's the same thing. We've heard so many things of they'll have a nice kirtan mela in the temple, and then after that, they simply go to whatever, an Airbnb just right down the street or something, and engage in all these animalistic activities just like the karmis do, just like they do, just smoking, drinking, having illicit sex, doing whatever, exactly what the college kids do, and that are just completely in the mode of ignorance. So they're putting on a show of being so devotional, and then they're going off and doing all these things that are directly against the principles of pure devotional service. And this is extremely damaging to devotional society, and to the karmis as well, that they're trying to understand, if someone is trying to understand devotional service and approaching it, and this is what they get, is this what they see, they're going to be completely misled, just like our friend that I was speaking about earlier online, that he was misled by all these just different things. And, if they're innocent, it's, you can feel very bad for them because they're just misled, and they might be looking for the real thing, but they don't know where to find it, and they get misled by all these nonsense people. So, as this is saying, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that this kind of devotional service is simply an unnecessary disturbance in society. I was thinking it's even like, it's much worse than even like not being a devotee. It's hard to say that, but it's better that they would just be do those animalistic things without making a show of being a devotee, because then it makes a bad name for what a devotee is. Someone that's claiming to be a devotee should have the responsibility and understand the gravity and the weight of practicing devotional service and representing that in the public. And you're representing Srila Prabhupada, you're representing the Guru Parampara, that, these exalted, Vaishnavacharyas that have done so much. They've, spilled buckets and buckets and buckets of blood, oceans of blood, just to bring us Krishna consciousness, and we should be very grateful and very respectful of that, and have a very grave approach to that. Not take it lightly, not go out and just throw that entire legacy, in the garbage, and just completely tarnish that name. It's really a shame. So there's a bit of a tangent there, but basically, this idea is that so many people are looking for the truth, and out of all those people, it's very rare to come to this platform of devotional service. And even in that way, once you get to this platform, it's very hard to actually perfect yourself and completely rid yourself of material desires. And the point is also made here in the purport that, let's see, unless one practices devotional service to the Lord, one cannot know Krishna as he is, even though one is a great scholar or philosopher. Only the pure devotees can know something of the inconceivable transcendental qualities in Krishna, in the cause of all causes, in his omnipotence and opulence, and in his wealth, fame, strength, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation, because Krishna is benevolently inclined to his devotees. So this is to the point of, the only person that can actually know Krishna again, in saying, so out of so many thousands that are, in this animalistic propensity, one may endeavor for perfection, and out of those, one may achieve it, and out of those, hardly one knows me. So out of all these very, very rare souls are the pure devotee. The pure devotee is an extremely rare soul. And the only way to actually know Krishna is through this pure devotee. We can't jump over the association of devotees and just by our own endeavor, by our own logical use of the mind and mental speculation, we can't get to the point of understanding Krishna. It's completely impossible. This is Shloka Yasya Devi Parabhaktir Yata Tevi Tadagaro Tasyaite Katitahyata Prakashante Mahatmanaha, that through complete faith to Krishna and to the spiritual master, all the imports of Vedic knowledge are automatically revealed. So again, it's saying here that you don't have to be a great scholar or philosopher, not at all. You simply have to have faith in Krishna and in the spiritual master. And it's not a blind faith. We don't advocate for blind faith, but we don't advocate for blind doubt either. It's a invitation to come engage in this process of devotional service, in this scientific process. Try it out for yourself. Test it out. We're saying it works, but you can test it out and see for yourself. You chant this mantra, you chant 16 rounds every day, you wake up before 4 a.m., you don't eat karmi grains, you only take Krishna Prasadam, you follow the 4 regulative principles, you associate with devotees. You do all of these things, and your life will become completely sublime. Everything will be revealed to you in time, and these imports of the Vedic knowledge, of the Vedic Shastra, will be automatically revealed in the heart through your faith being built in this process, and your faith being built in Krishna, and your faith being built in the spiritual master. And it's ultimately because the spiritual master, the pure devotee, is very dear to Krishna. Krishna is benevolently inclined to his devotees. And so he gives them this knowledge. When Krishna is pleased with our devotional service, he bestows this knowledge upon us. Again, it's not something that we can move up to. It's something that comes down to us. And through the attitude of humility, chanadapi sunichayana, taroriva sahishnuna, amanina manadena kirtaniya sarahrihi, this attitude of being lower than the blade of grass, being more tolerant than a tree, with this attitude we can always chant this holy name. And, the process of chanting this holy name, Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam, kalanas devanas devanas devagatir anyata, this is the only way in this age of Kali to achieve perfection. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way. And this is what the spiritual master teaches us. This is what Prabhupada came to teach us, that we need to chant this Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And we can achieve ultimate perfection in life. All these philosophers and jnanis and people that are mentally speculating, trying to achieve perfection, we'll completely go past all of them. We'll be, situated on a much higher platform. And we also get to have a much more blissful life. This idea of merging into the impersonal Brahman is so morose. It's very dark, actually, when you think about it, because they're so fed up with material life that they think the solution to that is just to neutralize it completely and just completely end all activity. That's the only way to have happiness, because all activity, all things that all thoughts, all desires, all these things, they're all miserable, actually. But this process of devotional service teaches us that this world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world, and the spiritual world is full of all the same things, but we are full of this Satchidananda. We're full of we are eternal, we are full of knowledge, and we're full of bliss. And there are spiritual desires that actually bring us happiness. They don't leave us frustrated and just completely just fed up with material life. We can continuously engage more and more and more in this process of devotional service, and get more and more bliss, more and more happiness, more and more fulfillment, more and more love in the heart. More knowledge is revealed to us. Just deeper realizations. You're strengthening your relationships with devotees, all these things. It just gets better and better and better in this process. And it takes patience, and it takes determination, and it takes resilience and discipline, all these things. But the association of devotees is very important because this makes the entire process much more simple. And Prabhupada's saying in here that this process is not easy, actually. He kind of says other places that it is easy. So I found that interesting. Let me see if I can find exactly. Oh, yeah. If the path of bhakti is so easy as the non-devotee class of men proclaims, then why do they take up the difficult path? Actually, the path of bhakti is not easy. The so-called path of bhakti practiced by unauthorized persons without knowledge of bhakti may be easy. But when it is practiced factually according to the rules and regulations, the speculative scholars and philosophers fall away from the path. I found that interesting as well. I was just thinking about, in regards to that, this, at least what I'm gleaning from this is that these speculative philosophers and such, they are addicted to their mental just speculation, so much so that they're not willing to take knowledge from above, this shabda. They're addicted to this anuman thinking, that using logic and reasoning and all these things and mental speculation to come to a conclusion. The souls in the material world, they're averse to surrendering to Krishna and to taking knowledge from him and from the Bhagavad Gita, because that's the whole reason we're here in the first place. So this is part of the reason it's difficult to approach the path of bhakti, because you have to give up all your misconceptions. You have to give up all your ideas of mental speculation and thinking it might be this, it might be that. Is it not this? Is it not that? You have to give all of that up and just sarva dharman prityaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha yishamimashujahad. You surrender unto Krishna, give up all varieties of religion, and Krishna will deliver you from all fear, deliver you from all suffering, and you don't have to fear. So this is a very easy process in a way, but it's also a very difficult process. You have to follow all these rules and these kinds of things. And for people like myself in this day and age that come from this society, it's not so easy a lot of the times. But again, with the association of devotees, it becomes a lot easier. So that kind of sums up what I wanted to speak about here. If anyone has any comments or questions, you can feel free to ask. I think there's a mic over there. Something what? Karmi grains. Oh, karmi grains. So, karmi is a person that is accruing karma. So they're just living in the material world. They're not a devotee. They're not engaged in any transcendental activities. So just 99% of people out there, there's karmi. It's just like a name for like a normal person, you could say, in this world. And karmi grains is any food grains prepared by such people. So it's said that the consciousness of the preparer, of the cook, goes into the grain specifically. It goes into any preparation as well. Here we only eat food cooked by devotees. So we only cook food here and prepare it here and take it here. We don't buy bread from the store. We only buy like ingredients from the store, like whatever, vegetables and like uncooked rice and all that stuff, and then we cook it all here. So it's very strongly stressed in this tradition that you don't eat any food that has not been prepared by devotees, because that non-devotional consciousness, that materialistic consciousness that is the binding force in this material world, that keeps us in this cycle of birth and death, that is directly inside of that food stuff. So by eating that, our mind becomes like the materialist, and then we're not able to remember Krishna. We become materialistic, and we see it actually a lot of times. There's a story I heard recently of, there was a Mataji, and she was practicing devotional service. She was like fixed up, doing this, everything, and then she would go visit her mother, and her mom would cook for her, and her mom wasn't a devotee, she's just normal, just a materialist. And she did it like one time, and okay, like I shouldn't have done that. I know like that's wrong. Like it's going to affect me, but because of sentiment, because of like this is my mom, like I'm going to eat what she cooked for me. She did it, but then it one time became 2 times, and then it kept happening, and then eventually she fell away from devotional service, and she directly cited that this was, she recognized, okay, this is actually what happened. This is why I did that, because I started taking food prepared by her. So it's people, devotees tend to have the idea that it's just some grains, it's just bread. What's it going to do? It's not going to hurt me, whatever. But it's a very serious thing, and we follow very strictly here. So people kind of can call us fanatical for that reason, but we're just following what Lord Chaitanya has said and what Srila Prabhupada has taught us. So following the process exactly as it is. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Prabhu, could you explain this text here that was quoted by Srila Prabhupada, the devotional service of the Lord that ignores the authorized Vedic literature, like the Upanishads, Puranas, and Narada Pancharaksha, is simply an unnecessary disturbance in society? More so, I guess from the standpoint of those who are doing service towards the Lord, and that not necessarily being accepted according to this.
Yeah, so my understanding of this quote here is that, so basically, those that are posing as being devotees, but they might be deviated from the proper path. Sahajas is one example, that they take everything cheaply. They like to do all the fun aspects of bhakti, I guess you could say, like kirtan and whatever, and prasadam and all these things, but following the 4 regs, waking up early, chanting 16 rounds, doing the rules and the austerities that are required, they might not accept that. So that was my takeaway from this. I could have it completely wrong, so if anybody wants to correct me. But okay. Anything else? Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Just wanted to comment. Thank you for the discourse.
Yeah.
Very clear, concise.
Oh, it's not.
Thank you for the discourse. It's very clear and concise. And what you were speaking of about the grains is basically science.
Mm-hmm.
Transfers of energy, transferring one energy to another spot.
Yeah.
That's what you were speaking about. Eating from the mother, transferring her energy
Mhm.
to that food, and transferring it to the devotee. So the basic science.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Oh, sorry. Hare Krishna Prabhu, sorry.
I agree with that. Just thought about, like a mother pregnant with a baby.
Uh-huh.
Whatever she eats, the baby also gets.
Yeah.
That's kind of direct.
Yeah.
One little comment, I was thinking about a little line kind of from the Bible and Christ about those that believe and those that don't believe. And Christ kind of compared it, I think it's also in the Bhagavad Gita somewhere, to water. He would rather have cold water or hot water. But lukewarm water, he says, just spit it out.
Spew you out.
Yeah.
Because thou art lukewarm. Yeah.
Yeah.
People that lukewarm, they can have a
Yeah, exactly. If you water down the pure message, it just becomes basically useless. Because if you're not following exactly like it says, you won't, it's like this idea of, okay, if you have like a 1,000-mile journey and you're off by 1 degree, you're going to end up in a completely different place. You have to go exactly on the right path. And this spiritual path is compared to a razor's edge. It's very sharp, and you have to go exactly, you have to be very careful. So yeah, thank you for that, Prabhu. Okay. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripasinubhyascha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha.